Salem, Massachusetts is known for its historic streets and an atmosphere filled with mysteries and legends. But what would you do if, on a sunny afternoon, a house forgotten by time revealed secrets that should have remained hidden? My name is Raven Shadowmere, and today, on Midnight Mysteries, I will take you on a chilling journey through one of the most disturbing mysteries I have ever investigated. It was 1960 when Julia and her friend Sarah decided to explore one of the most enigmatic houses in Salem, a house whose doorbell never stopped ringing, even though it had been abandoned for decades. What seemed like a simple game turned into a living nightmare when Julia's curiosity led her to press that doorbell. What they didn't know was that this innocent act would awaken forces far more powerful and dark than they could ever imagine. Today, you will discover how an apparently harmless house became the gateway to a world of pain, regret, and trapped souls. And more importantly, what would happen if you were in Julia's shoes? Oh, and before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and give that like. Because after all, you won't want to miss any details of this story, right? And who knows, you might need this information the next time you feel that strange urge to ring a doorbell. The sun shone brightly over Salem, Massachusetts, as my friend Sarah and I walked through the cobblestone streets, absorbing the historic atmosphere that enveloped the city. The air was thick with stories of witchcraft and mystery, and excitement pulsed in our veins. As a paranormal investigator, I had always sought a connection with the supernatural, and Salem seemed like the perfect place for that. "Look, Julia," Sarah exclaimed, pointing to an old sign. "They say this house is haunted. The doorbell never stops ringing." I approached, intrigued. The house, with its broken windows and peeling paint, appeared to have been forgotten by time. "Do you believe in those stories, Sarah?" I asked, trying to hide my own curiosity. "I don't know, but it would be fun to take a look, shall we?" The idea of exploring a place known for strange events thrilled me. "Of course. Let's find out what truth lies in these legends," I replied with a smile. As we reached the front of the house, the atmosphere shifted. It was as if the air was charged with electricity, and a strange sensation crept up my spine. "Julia, this feels kind of sinister," Sarah murmured, hesitating a bit. "That's exactly what we're looking for," I said, feeling an inexplicable connection to that place. "Let's just take a peek." With a push, I opened the rusty gate. The sound echoed like a lament, and the front door, covered in dust, seemed to invite us in. "Wait, Julia, we shouldn't touch anything," Sarah warned. But curiosity had already taken hold of me. My hand reached for the doorbell. "Just one touch. Nothing bad will happen," I assured. But deep down, a small voice inside me whispered that I was making a mistake. When I pressed the doorbell, a sound resonated, echoing in a gothic manner throughout the house. The sound was deep, almost like a calling. My heart raced, and I let out a nervous laugh. "See? Just one touch." To my surprise, the door opened slowly, as if it were a portal to another dimension. "This is strange," I murmured, looking at Sarah, who appeared visibly anxious. "Julia, I don't know if we should go in." She hesitated, but I had already stepped forward, drawn by an invisible force. As soon as I crossed the threshold, a wave of cold enveloped me. The atmosphere was heavy, filled with a presence I couldn't identify. "Sarah, come here," I called, but heard no response. Instead, I noticed the door slamming shut behind me with a deafening bang. "Sarah!" I screamed in desperation as I tried to open the door, but it was locked, as if the house had decided to trap me inside. The silence was deafening, except for distant whispers that seemed to beckon me. "What is happening? Julia, are you okay?" Sarah's voice echoed from outside, but the distance seemed to grow. "I'm fine, but the door, it won't open." The whispers around me intensified, forming indistinct words that danced in the air. "You shouldn't be here," a soft, yet sorrowful feminine voice seemed to say. I looked around, trying to understand what was happening. The shadows on the walls appeared to move, contorting as if they wanted to envelop me. "What is this?" I murmured to myself, feeling fear settle in my chest. "Julia, help me!" Sarah shouted, and I realized she was desperate outside. My feelings of curiosity and adventure were quickly being replaced by terror. What had I done? What had I awakened by touching the doorbell? And so, surrounded by a sense of oppression and an invisible presence, I was about to uncover the dark secrets the house held. But at that moment, all I could do was wait, petrified, as the whispers grew louder and the shadows drew closer. I found myself trapped in a nightmare. The door behind me was locked, and I could feel the pressure of silence in the abandoned house. The air was heavy, as if laden with the laments of lost souls. As I tried to turn the doorknob, the sound of childish laughter echoed once more, a sound that could have been delightful under different circumstances, but now sounded like a dark call to the unknown. "Sarah!" I shouted, but my voice sounded weak and distant. The echo of my own voice unsettled me. The laughter persisted, insistent, as if it were an invisible hand pulling me deeper into the house. There was no other choice. I needed to follow that sound. With one last look at the door, which seemed increasingly like a barrier between me and freedom, I began to explore the interior of the house. The environment was dusty, and each step I took stirred up small clouds of dust. I looked around and noticed old toys scattered on the floor, covered in a layer of dust. There was a porcelain doll with a sad expression, and a deflated soccer ball that seemed to have been there for decades. The walls were adorned with black and white photos of the Miller family, their melancholy gazes watching me as if they knew more than they were willing to reveal. As I approached the photos, a chill ran down my spine. One of the images caught my attention. A girl in a lace dress, holding a doll identical to the one on the floor. What could have happened to her? What had been lost in that house? The sound of laughter guided me, and I felt compelled to move forward, drawn by a magnetism I couldn't explain. I continued exploring, passing through a ruined living room, where the sofa was covered with a stained sheet, as if time had stopped there. In the corner, an old coffee table was cluttered with yellowed magazines, the pages turned by a wind that seemed to have a life of its own. The laughter echoed again, now closer. I needed to find the source of that sound. Finally, I entered a narrow, dark corridor where light barely penetrated. The floor creaked beneath my feet, and the sensation of being watched intensified with every step. When I reached the end of the corridor, I found a partially open door. Curiosity led me to push it gently. Inside the room, an even denser atmosphere enveloped me. In the center, an old desk caught my attention. What could be there? As I approached, I noticed a small diary resting on the table, covered in dust, as if no one had touched it in years. With my heart racing, I opened the diary and began to read. The words were from a distressed woman, the mother of the Miller family. She spoke of tragedies, of rituals performed in an attempt to protect her children from forces she did not understand. A passage caught my attention. The doorbell brings spirits, but it is also a portal. Do not let them touch it, for what comes may never return. The doorbell. What had I done? The innocent touch I had given could have triggered something much deeper and more terrifying. As I read, the environment around me began to change. The objects in the room seemed to come to life, and a chill ran through my body. A toy moved, sliding away from me, while whispers began to echo, enveloping and penetrating. "You shouldn't be here," a soft, almost childish voice whispered. I looked around, but saw no one. "You need to go away." The urgency in the voice made me hesitate, but the need to understand what was happening was stronger. "Who's there?" I asked, trying to control my fear. The laughter returned, now closer, as if an invisible presence was surrounding me. "Please help me." The voice sounded choppy, as if it were struggling to break free from something. I didn't know what to do. The house was alive, and the souls of the Millers seemed to be in despair, trying to communicate. The doorbell I had touched was not just an object, it was a link between worlds. And now, I was at the center of this conflict, entangled in a mystery that had spanned generations. What could I do to help? The atmosphere in the hidden room was dense and oppressive, as if the very air were laden with laments and unspoken secrets. I hesitated for a moment, but curiosity pushed me forward. As soon as I entered, I was enveloped by an unsettling gloom and my eyes fixed on a row of broken mirrors. The shards reflected the light in a distorted manner, creating a play of shadows that seemed to dance around me. It was then that I saw her. The spectral figure of a child, with disheveled hair and a sad look, stood in a corner. My heart raced in my chest. "Hi," I said, my voice trembling. "Are you here?" She didn't answer, but her eyes shone with a mix of hope and despair. I approached, and the cold emanating from her made me shiver. "Are you a Miller?" I asked, trying to establish a connection. The child slowly nodded, and I realized she was afraid, just like me. "My brother, he's missing," the child whispered, her voice barely escaping her lips. "I can't find him. Can you show me where he is?" The question slipped from my mouth before I could think. The ghostly figure hesitated, but then took a step toward one of the broken mirrors. "Look," she murmured, and I leaned closer, feeling an intense cold as I approached the reflective surface. As I looked into the mirror, the image began to transform. The shadows dissipated, revealing visions of the Miller family in moments of happiness. Children's laughter echoed, and I saw a family dinner. Everyone gathered around a table laden with colorful dishes. But soon the scene changed, and laughter was replaced by tears. I saw the same child, now with a pained expression, and a woman standing beside her with an empty gaze. "It's this," the child whispered, pointing at the image. "We were happy, but something happened." My heart tightened in my chest. "What happened?" I asked, but the image in the mirror seemed to respond. I saw a grotesque scene, the doorbell ringing, a door opening, and a scream echoing through the house. The woman, the mother, was desperate, trying to protect her children from something I couldn't even understand. "He was there," the figure said, her eyes filled with tears. "Thomas." The realization that I was facing a mystery much larger than I had imagined began to form. "I need to help you find him," I declared, determination taking hold of me. "But how can we do that?" The child looked at me, and for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope in her somber gaze. "You need to ring the doorbell again," she said, almost in a whisper. "Only then can we communicate. Only then can we bring him back." "But what if something bad happens?" I worried. "What if we can't?" "We need to try," the child insisted, her small hand reaching out to me. "If you don't try, we'll never know." I hesitated, but the urgency in her gaze made me realize there was no other choice. "All right," I said, swallowing hard. "Let's do this together." As the spectral figure led me back to the center of the room, I felt the energy of the house pulse around us. The air was colder, and the whispers that had once been mere murmurs now turned into desperate cries. The doorbell called to me, a distant sound that seemed to echo through time and space. "Let's go, show me the way," I urged, and with one last look at the child, I headed toward the exit of the room. The echo of the doorbell still resonated in my mind, and the more I thought about it, the more I felt that the answer lay ahead of me. The doorbell was not just an object, it was the key to the liberation of the trapped spirits. And if I wanted to help that child find her brother, I needed to face the terrors that awaited me beyond the door. The atmosphere in the house had changed drastically since I entered. Every corner seemed to pulse as if it were alive, and the shadows danced on the walls, whispering secrets I couldn't fully understand. The diary of the Miller family's mother was still open in my hands, its yellowed pages revealing a dark story of rituals and tragedies. The last entry spoke of the night when the doorbell rang and how it transformed the family's life into a true nightmare. But what intrigued me the most was the name that echoed in my mind, Thomas. "He needs help," I murmured to myself, trying to process the visions still dancing in front of my eyes. The spectral figure of the child, which I now understood to be Thomas's sister, flickered like a fragile flame, and her gaze implored for answers. "Where is Thomas?" I asked, my voice nearly lost in the heavy air of the house. The child seemed to hesitate, but soon pointed to a door at the end of the hallway. "He's in there," she said in a voice that sounded like a distant echo. I followed her finger, my heart racing as a sense of urgency took hold of me. What could have happened on that fateful night? What would I have to do to bring him back? As I approached the door, an intense cold enveloped me, and upon opening it, I found a dark room filled with broken toys and dusty photographs. In the center, a small table was covered with objects that seemed very personal. A wooden car, a yellowed book, and a small box that, when opened, revealed a necklace of colorful beads. "These are his," the child said, her voice sounding softer, almost like a whisper. "He was trying to protect me." Protect her? What could have happened? With each new object I touched, flashes of memory crossed my mind. I saw a scene of a child, Thomas, playing joyfully, but that quickly transformed into a sequence of screams and panic. The image of the ritual began to take shape in my mind, and I realized that if I wanted to help the child, I would need to confront what happened that night. "I don't know how to perform a ritual," I confessed, feeling the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. But the spectral figure smiled, as if she knew I had more power than I imagined. "You can do this, Julia. The bell, it's the key." The bell. My heart raced as I remembered the sound that echoed when I touched it for the first time. What if I do it again? What if everything goes wrong? Doubt consumed me, but the determination in the child's eyes gave me courage. "You cannot be afraid. Thomas needs you," she insisted, and I knew I couldn't back down now. I took a deep breath, trying to gather all the information I had. With Thomas' objects laid out on the table, I prepared a space for the ritual. The shadows around me seemed to intensify, as if they were watching every move I made. "What do I need to do?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "Call for him. Say his name. He will hear you," replied the child figure, with a certainty I wished I had. I looked at the objects, then closed my eyes, trying to feel the energy around me. "Thomas, I'm here. I want to help you." The silence in the room was almost palpable, and the tension mounted. Suddenly, a cold breeze passed through me, and I felt a presence. Something began to stir in the room, and I noticed the shadows gathering, forming a spiral of energy. "Thomas, you need to come back. Your sister is here," I shouted, my voice echoing against the walls. Then, the house shook. The ground beneath my feet pulsed with a supernatural force, and I almost lost my balance. The shadows began to move more aggressively, as if rebelling against my attempt to summon Thomas. The air around me grew heavy and charged, and I felt a force pulling me back, trying to distance me from what was about to happen. "Julia, don't give up. He needs you." The child's voice resonated in my mind, encouraging me to keep going. I couldn't give up. "Thomas!" I cried again, my voice now almost a scream. "Come to me!" As the house continued to tremble, the shadows became denser, and I knew I needed to firm up. I held Thomas' objects tightly, and as I did, a wave of energy coursed through my body. "I will not give up," I declared, challenging whatever was trying to stop me. "I summon you, Thomas. Come." Hearing the child's voice beside me, a new determination grew within me. And in that moment, I knew that all the tragedies and pains of that family could not be in vain. I was here to help, and there was no force that could stop me. The wind howled outside, and I felt a growing pressure in the air, as if the house itself was breathing heavily. The whispers intensified, and a sense of despair enveloped me. The spirits began to appear, sad shadows floating around me, crying for release. Their faces were familiar, distorted by pain, but each told a story of love and loss. "Thomas, where are you?" I screamed, my voice blending with the echo of the wind. The child figure in front of me, a girl with disheveled hair and big eyes, looked at me with hope. "They need you, Julia. He needs you," she whispered, her voice as gentle as the touch of a warm breeze. "I don't know what to do," I admitted, feeling the weight of responsibility in my chest. Hearing the lamentations of the spirits, I looked at the girl and asked, "How can I help Thomas?" She hesitated, her eyes shining with tears. "He is trapped in a place between the living and the dead. You need to confront what trapped him." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Confront the spirit that held Thomas captive? What did that mean? Suddenly, everything around me began to tremble. The house creaked, and the shadows became more aggressive, as if being sucked in by a dark force. "Thomas, I'm here," I shouted, wishing he knew he wasn't alone. The wind intensified, and the dark presence in front of me grew stronger, seeming to materialize into a more defined shape. An entity shrouded in dark mist emerged, and my heart raced. Its eyes were like black holes, filled with pain and guilt. "You shouldn't be here," it growled, its voice echoing as if it were coming from an abyss. "You are his mother, aren't you?" I asked, my voice trembling but determined. "You are holding Thomas here, trapped in your pain." She hesitated, her expression twisting in disgust. "I protected him. He cannot leave. The world is dangerous, but he needs you. He is not safe here, and neither are you," I pleaded, feeling the weight of her guilt and pain. "Let him go. He deserves to live." The entity seemed to hesitate, and I realized that guilt was consuming her. "I failed them," she murmured, her voice breaking. "I let the ritual go wrong. If I free him, what will happen to him? What if he gets lost?" "He is not lost. He just wants to be with you," I shouted, the passion in my words growing. "You need to confront him, not with fear, but with love. He just wants to know that you care." The figure began to fade, her ethereal form floating like smoke. "Love, what is that?" she whispered, as if the idea were new and strange to her. "Love is what keeps us alive. It's what connects us even when we are apart. You can free your son and still love him," I said, my voice filled with emotion. "It's time to let go of the past and allow him to find peace." The whispers of the spirits around me grew louder, like a supportive chorus. I felt the energy in the house shifting, a flow of hope replacing the pain. The entity hesitated, and I saw a tear slide down her translucent face. I don't know if I can." "You can," I affirmed, extending my hand toward her. "Allow yourself to feel. Allow yourself to love." The wind began to calm, and the darkness around us slowly dissipated. The mother's gaze softened, and I could see a spark of love ignite in her eyes. The pressure in the air began to change, as if we were on the brink of breaking the chains that bound us. "Please, help him," she pleaded, her voice now filled with vulnerability. "I want him to be free." And in that moment, I realized we were on the verge of a revelation that could change everything. The connection between us was palpable, and I knew that Thomas' liberation depended not only on me, but also on the courage of that mother. The air was thick, almost tangible, as I faced the entity floating before me. Its expression was a mix of pain and unconditional love, and I knew that Thomas' mother had become a shadow of herself, consumed by despair and guilt. "I know you love him," I said, my voice trembling with the intensity of the moment. "You just wanted to protect him, didn't you? But this isn't the way. He needs you, just as you need him." The creature hesitated, the light emanating from it flickering like a candle about to go out. "I couldn't let them leave," it whispered, its voice echoing like a wail. "The world outside is dangerous. I didn't want them to be a part of it. I just wanted to keep them safe." "But you trapped them," I replied, trying to stay calm. "You can't protect them this way. They are lost, and so are you. Thomas needs you now more than ever." Deep down, I felt a genuine connection with that woman, as if her pain resonated within me. "Set him free. He must know you're still here, that you still love him." The entity began to fade, as if a weight was being lifted from its shoulders. "I don't know how." It seemed confused, as if struggling against its own emotions. "I don't want to lose him again." "You won't lose him. If you let him go, he can finally find peace, and so can you." The words flowed from me with growing fervor as I felt the energy of the house vibrate around us. It was as if all the trapped souls there were waiting for this moment, for this liberation. And then, the truth began to reveal itself in flashes, like an image in a foggy mirror. "The doorbell," I murmured, the realization hitting me like a lightning bolt. "It's not just a portal, it's a prison. You created it to keep them safe, but you've trapped them yourself. They can't live like this." The shadows around us began to stir, as if feeling the weight of the words. "I didn't want to," the mother murmured, her spectral tears beginning to flow. "I just wanted to protect them from what happened to me. Let Thomas go, and he will find his way back. He needs to know you love him, that you're here." I felt the urgency rising, as if every second was crucial. "You have to trust him." The entity hesitated, but the determination in my heart seemed to infect the environment. "I trust," she finally whispered, and with that, a wave of light began to shine around her, dissipating the shadows that once surrounded her. "Now," I said, taking a deep breath, "let's perform the ritual together." The words flowed from me, and a powerful energy began to form. Carefully, I traced a circle on the floor with the dust that remained from the broken objects around me, creating a sacred space. "Repeat after me," I commanded, and the mother began to chant the words, her voice echoing with growing power. I released Thomas. I let him go to find peace. With each repetition, the house trembled, and the whispers of the souls around us grew louder. "I am no longer his prison, but his home," I shouted, feeling the energy pulse through my veins. "The doorbell is a symbol of love, not a chain." When I finally reached the climax of the ritual, a blinding light erupted from the doorbell, and I knew it was time to ring it again. "Together now." Yeah. What we discovered today is more than just a simple ghost story. It is a lesson about the dangers of curiosity and the limits of what we should or should not explore. The house in Salem was much more than a crumbling building. It was a place of torment, where lost souls were trapped in an endless cycle of pain. Julia, upon ringing the doorbell, entered a world she should not have known, but her determination to help the spirits of the Miller family showed that even in the darkest places, there can still be hope and redemption. In the end, Julia's choice to confront her fears and free Thomas and his mother reminds us that love is a powerful force, capable of overcoming even the barriers between the living and the dead. However, this act of courage came at a price that Julia was willing to pay to bring peace to those who had long lost their hopes. And now, you also know the truth behind the legend of the house in Salem. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the Midnight Mysteries channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Your like is very important, not only for us, but to ensure that more people can discover these incredible and mysterious stories we explore here. And if you know someone who loves a good mystery, share this video with them. Who knows, the next time they're in Salem, they might think twice before ringing any doorbells around there. I sincerely thank you for staying until the end. It's not every day that we find someone willing to face the unknown until the very end. But be careful. The stories we tell here might stay with you longer than you think. So, stay alert and don't miss the next mystery we're going to unravel. Now, if you're ready for the next scare, just let YouTube guide you to the next story. Until then, sleep well, if you can.